What's going on, GW Faction? My name is Joshua Williamson. So for this whole video recipe, I'm going to show you how I make cheesesteaks, okay? I'm not calling it a Philly cheesesteak because I've never been to Philadelphia before, but I would like to visit there sometime. But I've made a cheesesteak that I'm really happy with, so I'm going to show you how to make it. Very easy to make, doesn't take that much time, and it tastes amazing, so let's get started. So to start off, in a non-stick pan, I have a few drops of grapeseed oil in there. I'm going to let it preheat until it gets hot enough. Then you want to dice half of a sweet onion, and you want to let it cook for about maybe 2 or 3 minutes until it turns a brown color. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you want to season them a little bit with salt too. This right here is the color that I'm personally looking for. You may want it a little bit, browner for your taste, but this is good enough for me. So onto the steak. Now, this particular shave steak that I got, it's beef shave steak from Walmart, okay? It's really thinly sliced beef that's already pre-sliced. They don't specify where exactly on the cow this comes from, but my guess is that it's chuck because it's cheap and it's got a decent amount of fat in it. Now, it's already shaved really thin, but I like to cut the meat up into smaller bits because I like for my cheesesteak to have chopped up thinly sliced steaks instead of like whole slices. Before I start cooking the steak, I'm going to talk about the last component, which is the bread. Now this, I got a 14-ounce French loaf from Walmart, okay, and I cut it in half because I only need half of the bread for this cheesesteak. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down the side until it's about 3/4 of the way cut through. Not cut all the way through, but about 3/4 of the way up. And this is optional, but I actually like to take some of the inner bread out. I like to gut it a bit because I like when there's more steak than bread on my cheesesteaks. And I also like to put it in the microwave for about 15 or 20 seconds just to warm the bread up and soften it a little bit more. Now on to cooking the steak. Now, I have a cast iron pan, I've lined it with a thin layer of grapeseed oil, and I'm going to let it preheat over high heat until it starts smoking. Once the pan starts smoking, put all the steak into the pan. You want to cook the meat for only about maybe a minute and a half. And during that cooking, I'm going to season it generously, with salt, black pepper, and garlic powder. Turn the heat all the way down to low and flip all the steak over. And you want to let it cook just for about another minute until there's barely any pink left. You want to add those onions that you browned earlier and mix those in with the steak. Now onto the cheese. Now I'm using provolone cheese for my cheesesteak. It's my favorite cheese. Now Whiz is one of the more popular choices for a Philly cheesesteak, but I personally hate Cheez Whiz, so I'm going to put some provolone on, about 6 slices. Then I'm going to cover this with some sort of lid, any big lid that you have that'll fit this cast iron pan, and I'm going to let the steam do its job and melt all that cheese down. After all that cheese has melted, what you want to do now is get some of it off as much as you can and put it on to your roll. Alright, so this last step, a lot of people don't know how important this step actually is, but you want to wrap the entire sandwich up in parchment paper, roll it all up, and you want to let it sit wrapped up in the parchment paper for about 5 minutes. Now, not only does this store the sandwich and keep it warm longer, but it also helps the bread adhere to all the ingredients, all the steak and the cheese and the onions, whereas if you try to eat it right away, it'll fall apart. But after all this is done, I will take this out and I will show it off for presentation. Alright, our cheesesteak is done. I'm going to see if I can cut this in half, just to give you guys a really good cross-section of what the inside looks like. 1 second, someone fell out, but I don't care. I can eat that later. Take a look at that. This is awesome. Like I said, this is really easy, really simple to make, and it tastes amazing. The Philly cheesesteak is probably my favorite sandwich of all time. You are really missing out if you never tried a cheesesteak before. It's one of the best things in the world. But if you tried it out, leave in the comment section down below and tell me what you thought, whether you liked it or you hated it. If you liked it, you thumb up, hates you, thumb it down, and be sure to subscribe to become a member of the GW Faction on journey to 10,000 subscribers. See you later.